A little earlier than usual today, ladies and gentlemen, but it's because we have some football games that we got to talk about, and also we have some injuries. Surprising news like Case Keenum may or may not be the starting quarterback for the Houston Texans. Let's go ahead. Let's dive into these updated Week 15 Pickems. Hopefully find some Pickems that we like over on Underdog while at the same time helping you submit your starting lineup. So starting off in KC, you're going to have no Isaiah Pacheco. I understand that Mahomes has been disappointing. If you're looking at his Underdog Pick'em right now, currently sitting at 257.5 passing yards. Probably someone that you're going to have to go through and start regardless. We ranked him as a mid-quarterback one this week. Looking at the running backs, both McKinnon and Clyde Edwards-Helaire split the backfield this past week with no Isaiah Pacheco. The reality of the situation is not a great matchup going up against the Pats. Running back by committee, probably not super excited to start either RB. Kelsey, going to be a must-start guy, 65.5 receiving yards at a tight end. It's almost impossible to find. You're never considering MVS, Tony, Sky Moore. Rashee Rice, however, has cemented himself as the wide receiver one in this offense at 56.5 receiving yards for his higher lower than currently. I mean, you definitely can go through and start Rashee Rice if you would like to. But going over to the Pats, really there's only one guy worth looking at, and that's going to be Ezekiel Elliott. If you're looking at Zeke, they currently have him at 83.5 total yards. Someone that you're most likely starting as a mid-running back too. Now, I have Ezekiel Elliott in a $1,000 underdog buy-in tournament that we are still alive in, so you better believe your boy's rooting for Zeke. But the reality of the situation is super low-scoring offense, not nearly as much touchdown upside as you would just naturally assume because he scored last week. Now, going over to Tampa, not super excited about Baker, only 214.5 passing yards. Obviously, Rachaad White, someone that you're starting, he's almost at like 100 total yards. Evans, you're obviously starting him. Disappointing week last week, but he's at 72.5 total yards. And then Chris Godwin is a game time decision. I would rather not plan on Chris Godwin this game. Now, going over to the Packers, you still have Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon questionable. So we're not going to be able to look at the updated running backs situations for now. With Jordan Love, I'd probably rather not start him, especially as you have no Christian Watson. Jaden Reed may be a viable play. The reality is I'd rather not start anybody in Green Bay if we don't have to. Going over to the Jets, Zach Wilson is bad. Don't think just because he was good last week that that's changed absolutely anything. Breece Hall remains someone that you're having to start every week in a full PPR format, given his receiving usage. They currently have him at less than 4 receptions. Garrett Wilson remains someone that you're starting every single week. 56.5 receiving yards. Obviously, very unlikely to score a touchdown. They have him with a 2x multiplier to score a touchdown this week at Miami. But still, full BBR format when the volume is there, someone that you're going to have to start. Now, going over to Miami, very difficult to figure out exactly what you are doing here just because we don't have official word on either Tyreek Hill or Devon Achane just yet. I would say if you have no Tyreek, you have to play Jalen Waddle. You have to play Raheem Mostert regardless. And if Tyreek plays, you have to play Tyreek Hill. They have Tua currently sitting at 220.5 passing yards, which this isn't my favorite pick'em of the week. I will show you all my favorite at the end, or honestly, just probably in about 5 minutes, we'll get to it. But I would like Tua for more than 220 passing yards, even in a tough matchup against the Jets here, if Tyreek Hill is clear to go. So we're going to wait. We're going to confirm that Tyreek is good. Then if that's the case, we're going to go Tua more than 220 passing yards. Now, going over to the Chicago Bears, you start Justin Fields, they had 58.5 rushing yards. Obviously, a ton of rushing upside. I mean, this backfield is split 3 ways with these RBs. So Deonta Foreman, they have had 40.5 rushing yards. Foreman should be the starting running back. I'm not excited about him. However, you really only start DJ Moore at 65.5 receiving yards. Cole Kmet, you can start. They have Cole Kmet with a 2.25x multiplier to score a touchdown this week. Let's move past this. And of course, if y'all wanted to check out any of these pick'ems over on Underdog, promo code FLOCK will get you 100% a positive match, plus our rest of season fantasy football rankings and tiers. And also, if you're new to Underdog with promo code FLOCK, you are going to be getting a Lamar Jackson special pick'em, more than less than half a total yard, ladies and gentlemen. And also, we can roll into my favorite pick'em for this week as well over there in Baltimore. I really do like Keaton Mitchell for fewer than 9.5 carries. Keaton Mitchell has never had a game in his NFL career with 10 carries. He's never had it. Justice Hill played more snaps last week. They're splitting the backfield 3 ways. So I'm going Keaton Mitchell fewer than 9.5 rush attempts. That's actually my favorite pick'em on Underdog that you'll see in this video. Let's go back to Cleveland, where you have Flacco as the starting quarterback. Flacco's at 229.5 passing yards. So if you look at him in comparison to like Tua, Underdog's saying that if you have no Tyreek Hill, you can maybe go with Flacco over Tua if you want. I personally would be too scared to do such a thing. Amari, 56.5 receiving yards. Definitely you can start him. David Njoku, 40.5 receiving yards. Obviously, you're starting him after the performance last week. Now, going over to the Titans here, you have Derrick Henry at 78.5 total yards. I think Derrick Henry is actually going to be a must-start guy now that you have a good game environment going up against Houston, where you have no CJ Stroud, you have no Nico Collins, you have no Tank Dell. The Titans are favored heavily in this game. They should be able to run the ball in the second half. We did hit on our pick'em of Derrick Henry last week, fewer than 54.5 rushing yards, but not even going to be considering taking any fewer thans on Derrick Henry this week. I think Derrick Henry will absolutely crush. DeAndre Hopkins, I'm a little bit less excited about, though, because I do think that this team can just run the ball in the second half. And I'm not starting a single soul in Houston. Now, going over to New Orleans, currently you have Alvin Kamara as that must-start guy, even odds to score a touchdown. 55.5 rushing yards, obviously. This man, you're excited about his receiving usage. You have Chris Olave at 65.5 receiving yards. Olave's not clear to go, but I mean, we had a lot of questions in the live stream last night, like, oh, okay, do I play a banged up Chris Olave if he is good, or instead am I going to play Jaylen Warren? And if you're looking at that range, if Olave is good to go, I'm just going to go ahead. I'm just going to play Chris Olave. I'm not going to overthink about it too much. Now, going over to the Falcons, Bijan remains a must-start guy. Beautiful matchup against the Carolina Panthers. London, they have at higher, lower, 4 receptions, a 2x multiplier to score a touchdown. You have a 2.5x multiplier to score a touchdown for Kyle Pitts. Neither of the pass catchers are too exciting here, just because really, if you're looking at Carolina, Bryce Young's at 175 passing yards. This offense isn't going to be able to effectively move the ball down the field, so we assume Atlanta's just going to run it. Now, Chuba Hubbard, they have at 63.5 rushing yards with some receiving involvement. So if you're looking at this, Chuba Hubbard does look to project to be a must-start running back. I personally will just be a little bit hesitant with how bad the offense is going to be. Now, Brock Purdy, 251.5 passing yards. This was ahead of where they had Patrick Mahomes, I believe. But obviously, perfect game going up against the Cardinals. You have an implied team total of about 30 to 31 points for this Niners offense. CMC, 120 total yards. You have Deebo Samuel currently sitting at like 80 total yards. You have Brandon Ayuk, 66.5. Kittle, 46.5. All these guys will be players that you just absolutely have to start. Then going over to Arizona, I have been saying to start someone like Kyler Murray over a player like Trevor Lawrence. We'll look at Lawrence in just one second. Also another very tough matchup. While Kyler has a very bad matchup going up against the Niners, I mean, I think that we assume you can still play him as a low-end quarterback one if you don't have a solid option, because 32.5 rushing yards for his higher lower. He's going to give you some rushing involvement, so this can still be a bad game for the Arizona Cardinals offense, and Kyler Murray can still be okay in fantasy. James Conner, you don't play. Hollywood Brown, you don't play. Trey McBride's really the only guy that you're going to be playing here in a horrendous matchup, but they even have McBride at 2.25x multiplier to score a touchdown, so the odds are slim. Now, a pick'em that I really liked over on Underdog earlier in the week was Terry McLaurin for fewer than 59.5 receiving yards. Keep in mind, Terry McLaurin's been like a wide receiver 4 this season in fantasy. They have since moved this down to 56.5. I'm assuming a ton of people were taking lower than on 59.5 receiving yards for McLaurin. I'm not as excited about 56.5 as I would have been about 59.5, though. I mean, if you were able to take lower than 59.5 receiving yards of McLaurin earlier this week, congrats on that. I'm not starting anybody in Washington outside of Antonio Gibson. Now, going over to Los Angeles, you play absolutely everybody. Kyren Williams is an underdog pick'em over 100 total yards. Kyren Williams was our second overall running back in our rankings this week. Cooper Kupp, 75.5 receiving yards. You start Cooper Kupp, and if you don't trust Kupp, put him in your lineup and then take fewer than 75.5 receiving yards on Underdog. I mean, they have him ahead of Puka right now. I think that if I was looking at a player to take a pick'em with in this Rams offense, I'd be going with more than 66.5 receiving yards for Puka Nacua. But the reality is, the only thing we need to focus in on here in Los Angeles is the fact that you start every single one of these guys. Then in Dallas, these guys should be good to go. You have Tony Pollard, even odds, score a touchdown. Obviously, Dak looks to be a top 3 quarterback. So you start Pollard, you start Dak, you start CeeDee Lamb. I don't think you need to hear any of this. Brandon Cooks, I'm not going to start. He's pretty much just penciled in for 4 receptions week in and week out. Jake Ferguson, you could start as well. Now, going over to the Bills, Josh Allen, QB1 this week. Don't need to talk about it too much. Looking at James Cook, probably a little bit too low on James Cook in our rankings, where he's at 53.5 rushing yards. Obviously, should have some receiving involvement as well. So I think that I was too low on James Cook. Stephon Diggs remains someone that I am completely comfortable starting. He's still in an elite level offense. And at the same time, he is still seeing that consistent target volume. And then Dalton Kincaid, they have a 37.5 receiving yards. So definitely much lower than where he previously was with no Dawson Knox. I'm still starting him as a top 10 tight end though. Then going over to Baltimore, I have Lamar in a $1,000 underdog tournament that I really want to advance to the next round. So really hoping we get a big week from Lamar. Obviously, if you use code FLOG on underdog, take the Lamar for more than half a total yard. Zay Flowers is viable, 58.5 total yards. Obviously, you're more excited about him with no Mark Andrews. Odell, you only have at 38.5 total yards. Not excited about Odell. Likely is at 34.5. So I still would go with someone like Dalton Kincaid over Isaiah Likely. And like I said, my favorite underdog pick of the week is going to be Keaton Mitchell for fewer than 9.5 carries. Do not start Keaton Mitchell. He has not had a single game in his NFL career with 10 or more carries, and he's splitting this backfield 3 ways. Now, going over to Jacksonville, you have Lawrence at 228.5 passing yards. You have an implied team total of about 19.5 points here. So I still start Travis Etienne for damn sure. I think with Calvin Ridley, this will be the first time I take a higher than with Ridley, who did have a considerable amount of target volume. If you are looking at what we had with him last week with no Christian Kirk. Now, the issue is, obviously, it's a very tough matchup going up against Baltimore, so I understand why you wouldn't be excited about it. But I'm playing Calvin Ridley. I lower my expectations given the matchup. Evan, and keep in mind, I never drafted Calvin Ridley this year. I mean, it would do me very well if Zay Jones and Evan Ingram were the guys, and Calvin Ridley does absolutely nothing. Selfishly, is kind of what I want to happen, but, I mean, Ridley's consistently seeing the target volume. And then Evan Ingram, 50.5 receiving yards. Obviously, you are starting Ingram. And then moving on beyond this, I don't think I need to tell you, but you start Hurts. You start DeAndre Swift. If you're looking at DeAndre Swift, I understand he has been disappointing, but they have him at 76.5 total yards, right? I mean, he's been disappointing over the past 2 weeks because they got steamrolled by Dallas, got steamrolled by the Niners. It's not really going to happen again. And then you start everybody in this offense. They have Dallas Goedert over Dalton Kincaid, which is very interesting. Kenneth Walker, really tough matchup. They only have at 62.5 total yards. Walker's a start dependent on who your other options are. Really, you're not super excited about anybody there in Seattle. Now, let's go ahead and let's look at the games today. First game will be the Nick Mullins show. They have at 244.5 passing yards. Ty Chandler is a must-start guy for me. I think Ty Chandler is a top 24 running back. He's at 79.5 total yards. Going to see every single snap out of his backfield. It's kind of like Ezekiel Elliott here. Justin Jefferson, must-start guy. They have at 77.5 receiving yards. They have Jefferson projected out as a top 10 wide receiver this week. I was hesitant about Jefferson early in the week because I didn't know when he was going to be cleared, but the fact he was cleared so early in the week, now I'm completely fine rolling with them. Hawkinson, they have at 52.5 receiving yards. Obviously, you're starting Jefferson, Hawkinson, and possibly Ty Chandler here. Now, going over to the Bengals, Jake Browning's at 243.5 passing yards. If you really wanted to start Jake Browning over someone like Tua, I mean, hell, they haven't projected for a higher mark. You have Mixon, even odds, score a touchdown. You're obviously starting Joe Mixon. You have Jamar Chase, currently sitting at 64.5 receiving yards. I'm starting Chase. He is much lower than Jefferson, however, if you're looking at these pickups. And then I'm not excited about anybody else in this offense. Going over to the Steelers, Trubisky will be the quarterback, so that tells us you don't start anybody here. I mean, Najee, they have at about 65.5 total yards. You have Warren at about the same mark. They're splitting the backfield 50-50. I'm not too interested. You have Deontay at 44.5 receiving yards. Freiermuth at 30.5. If you really wanted to say Mason, of course, Pat Freiermuth's going to have more than 30.5 receiving yards. Maybe you go with the higher than on underdog, but in terms of getting these guys in our starting lineup, I'm not excited about it. Now, going over to Indy, Zach Moss, must-start player. Zach Moss over 80 total yards for his Pickems, even odds scored touchdown. Pittman, 75.5 receiving yards. must-start guy. Downs has scaled back as of late, 43.5 receiving yards. So not super excited about any of those guys. And then going over to Denver, let's just briefly say start Javonte Williams. It's a good matchup going up against Detroit. You can start Cortland Sutton. They have at a 1.25x multiplier to score a touchdown. Seems like every single week over the past month, they've had him at a 1.75x multiplier to score a touchdown. He just continues to score. But now they have lowered that down just a bit. I'm not saying Sutton's someone you need a bench, you need to start. I think it does depend on your exact situation. And then going over to Detroit, Jared Goff, for sure, someone you can start if you need to. Gibbs, must-start player. Montgomery, must-start player. Amon-Ra St. Brown, must-start player. Sam Laporta, must-start player. Great offense. And I'm actually willing to go ahead and take the more than 71.5 receiving yards for Amon-Ra St. Brown here and assume that we are going to get a bounce back. But I think that covers all the games for today. Like, I want to reiterate, if y'all wanted to check out any of those Underdog Pickems, promo code FLOCK will get you 100% deposit match, plus our rest of season fantasy football rankings and tiers. You can find that link in the description, comment section, or live chat. And promo code FLOCK is also going to get you that Lamar Jackson special pick'em, more than less than half a total yard. And I know we talked about a lot of pick'ems in this video. I want to highlight my favorite one. This is, in my mind, the best one. I don't know if it's too close. Fewer than 9.5 rush attempts for Keaton Mitchell. He has never hit 10 in his entire NFL career. So we're going with that. But let me answer some questions. I saw that we had some come in. Christian says Keaton Mitchell or Noah Brown at the flex in a full PPR format. You have no C.J. Stroud. You have no Nico Collins. Honestly, really tough call. If C.J. Stroud is playing, it'd be Noah Brown by a mile. I probably go Keaton Mitchell. I don't know if we want anything to do with Houston. Now, Austin says Warren Reed, JSN, Cooks, or Singletary. I'm going to go with Jaden Reed in a full PPR format with no Christian Watson. B. Jordan says likely or Goddard full PPR. Thanks for the help. Thank you, my friend. I will go Goddard. And I'm sorry, we're not showing these on the screen. Colin says struggling with starting my lineup. Need 2 running backs, 2 receivers, and 2 flex between Bijan, Kyron, Hall, Javonte Lamb, Ayuk, Diggs, Devonta Smith, Nico Collins. Collins out, my friend. This is a phenomenal team, though. We're going to go Bijan, Kyron out running back, Lamb, Diggs, wide receiver. For the flex spots, we will be going with Ayuk and Breece Hall. Now, John says full PPR pick 2, Gabe, Odell, Ferguson. I'm going to go with Gabe and Odell. And then Lover Fields. I'm going to go with Fields, my friend. Now, Colton says Gibbs or Achane. We're going to go Gibbs with Achane being banked up. And then Jamar or Ayuk. I'm going to go with Jamar. True Player says sit 1, Mixon, Zeke, Moss, Hopkins, Wilson. Thanks, Mason. Thank you, my friend. I'm going to be sitting Hopkins here now that you have no Stroud. I think that they don't have to throw the ball as much. Second says full BBR, 3 receivers and a flex. Pittman, Terry, Zeke, Cooks, and Odell. We're going to be going with Pittman as our top option. Zeke as our second option. Then Terry, then Cooks. Now that he's good to go, I think Odell would be the last guy. Jesse says, losing my mind over this. Third time I've asked you. 2 wide receivers, 2 running backs, 2 flexes. Deonta, or Clyde Edwards-Helaire for the second flex. Good luck on your big money draft. So thank you so much, my friend. How about this? If I've already answered this multiple times, then I would tell you I do not have a good answer for you. I think they're all very close. How about we have everybody in the live chat spam? Who would you rather start for your second flex spot this week in a half PPR format? Are you going to go Deontay Johnson, Deonta Foreman, or Clyde Edwards-Helaire, CEH? Please, everybody spam the chat. Let us know which direction you're going in. And hopefully this helps Jesse out and make this decision for good. So we got 1 vote for Deontay Johnson. 2 votes for Johnson. 3 votes for Johnson. 1 vote for Clyde Edwards-Helaire. 2 votes for Clyde Edwards-Helaire. 3 votes for Clyde Edwards-Helaire. 1 vote for Foreman. 4 votes for Clyde Edwards-Helaire. 4 votes for Deontay. 5 votes for Deontay. 6 votes for Deontay. 5 votes for Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So then 7 votes. 8. It looks like it's either down between CEH or Deontay Johnson. Do not be starting Deonta Foreman there, my friend. Okay. But we are going to have to speed this up here. now. I believe our next question coming out from Zach says, tough spot. Start McKinnon or Charbonnet. We're going to go McKinnon. Start Addison today or Olave if he's going to go tomorrow with JSN as a backup. We're going to go Olave, then JSN as a backup. Omar says, happy BR start to Waddle, Javonte, Olave, and Garrett. I'm going to be going with Javonte and Waddle if you have no Tyreek, and then we're going to go Wilson if Tyreek plays. Hudson says, help. Starting Fields, Barkley, Gibbs, Amon-Ra, Jefferson, Puka, Ferguson. The bench has DJ, HN, Goff, Rice. I want to start DJ for the stack, but feel like we can't sit any of my starting receivers. Yeah, got to play Puka, got to play Amon-Ra, got to play DJ. I mean, if you wanted to go through and make a swap, it would be swapping out Puka for DJ Moore, but I think you're completely fine to keep it as is. Great team. Demonte says, start one, sit two. Sutton, Javonte, Walker. We're going to start Javonte, my friend. Torres says, hey, Mace, need to start one quarterback in the playoffs, second seed. Lawrence, Kyler, or Browning. Thanks. Thank you, my friend. I'm going to go Kyler if it's a 4-point passing touchdown. Zach says, Reader, Garrett Wilson. I'm going to go Garrett Wilson. And then the Rams or Tennessee defense. I'm going to be going with the Tennessee defense going up against, God, who are they playing? Case Keenum. Jeremy says, full BBR Superflex. Lost Herbert, CJ, Flacco, Levis. So Levis or Flacco. I'm sorry. Those are our two starting quarterbacks. Superflex League. Brutal, my friend. Hill, Puka, Smith, Bijan, McBride, Kincaid. Who do we play in this Superflex? So at running back, we're going to be going with Bijan and Mostert. Wide receiver, we're going to be going Tyreek, Puka. Obviously, pivot to Devonta Smith if Tyreek does not play. So it essentially comes down to we want to play Will Levis or Breece Hall. I will just go ahead and play Will Levis. I'll play both quarterbacks, play Flacco and Levis, even though I understand that is one of the very rare instances where you would consider running back in the Superflex spot. Shregan Fiona says, pick two, full BBR. Zeke, Reed, Chandler, Ford, or Kenneth Walker. I'm going to go ahead and take Ezekiel Elliott and Chandler's two running backs seeing every single touch. And then Goddard or McBride. Thanks. Thank you. We will go with McBride despite the matchup. Burner counts says start one. Dotson, Connor, Downs. We're going to go Connor despite the matchup. Two turn Jazz. Always happy to see us. Says, what's up, man? Saturday football vibes. Flacco or Lawrence. We're going to go Lawrence. Really tough spot for Lawrence. So I understand where you're coming from, though. El Maverick says, first playoff in the last 3 years. Congrats, my friend. 10 TBBR need help starting 5 and benching 1. Brees, Pollard, Kyron, Pittman, St. Brown, or Chase. I'm going to be benching Brees just given the offensive environment that he's going to be playing in. And also tied in, do we trust McBride or Pitts? We're going to go with McBride relatively easily, even if it's a very tough matchup going up against the Niners. Now, Adam says, happy BR start 2. Hopkins, London, Ford, Warren, or Higgins. Projected to lose by 2 points, so may need some high upside guys. We're going to go through and we are going to take the combo of DeAndre Hopkins and Jerome Ford. I'm a little bit less excited about Hopkins now that you have no Stroud, though. Dylan says, morning Mason, start Love, Kyler, or Sam Howell. I think it's honestly a little bit closer here than I would like to admit. I mean, especially if you have no Brian Robinson, maybe they even throw the ball with more aggression in Washington. I have Kyler and Howell ranked back-to-back. In a 6-point passing touchdown format, I'm going to go Sam Howell, though. 4-point league, I may go Kyler. And then start Terry, Zay Jones, or Noah Brown. I'm going to go with Zay Jones. I'm sorry. We're going to go Terry. The thing with Zay Jones is a very tough matchup going up against the Ravens. I think if we get another week of double-digit targets, then maybe we can pivot there in the long term. Now, Myra says, really appreciate you, Mace. Should we drop the Dallas defense? We have the Bears, Bills, Packers, Rams. Which two to hold and start this week? Hold on to the Dallas defense. I know they have a little bit of a tough run here. And then also Kincaid or likely. We're going to go Kincaid. We're going to go ahead. If you really wanted to pick up another defense to play this week, I think you can pick up the Rams going up against Washington, who have allowed the most sacks in the NFL. If you really wanted to make that swap. Now, Mr. Vildy Wub says Hubbard, Higgins, or Curtis Samuel in a PPR. We're going to go Hubbard. Jay says Jarek or T. I'm going to go Jarek. Freddie says Browning, Kyler, or Tua, all in bad matchups. We're going to go with Kyler, given the rushing upside. Then Thomas says Dynasty Superflex, Chase Brown for a future second. I would rather have the second round pick. Gives me way more flexibility. GV says, who to bench this week? Kyron, Moss, Bijan, Brees, Etienne. I'm going to be benching Brees out of this list. My top options would be Kyron and Bijan. Now, Tyler says Ford or Chandler. I'm going to go Ty Chandler. True Player says if Hill sits, Miami's defense or pivot to Atlanta or Tennessee. Still probably going to go with the Miami DST. David says, thanks, Mason. First round of the playoffs. Who to put in for tight end, Hawkinson or Kittle? Very tough spot. I mean, if you're looking at the Underdog Pickems, they are telling you that Hawkinson projects out to have more yards. I would say Kittle has more touchdown upside in the offense that he's in. However, I probably go Kittle. I have him back to back. And then for the flex, Hopkins, Najee, Higgins, Thielen, or the other tight ends. I probably go, oh my gosh. I may go Hawkinson here over Hopkins. It would have been Hopkins easily if CJ Stroud would have played. I'm just worried about Tennessee possibly just going out there and running the ball now. So it's not a situation I'm as excited about to play Hopkins. So I think you can go either Hopkins or Hawkinson there for the flex. Sean says 2 quarterbacks start Browning or roll the dice on Geno playing. I think Geno's going to play. I mean, if you want to start Browning, though, I'm not going to fault you at all because I do think that they're very comparable as is. Tunji says super flex PPR. Wait on Geno who said he's feeling good or play Browning today. Same exact thing. We will just go ahead play Browning today because I do think that they project out to be the same, but I do expect Geno to play. GV says Cup, Reed, McLaurin, Hollywood, JSN. Start 3. We're going to go with Cup, Reed, and McLaurin with Hollywood banked up in a very tough matchup. Yeah, but Cup is someone you have to play. Now, Dalton says, hey, Mason, in the semifinals this week, stuck on the flex, full BBR now point per carry. Start Warren Gibson or Aaron Jones healthy. Thanks, brother. Appreciate you, my friend. We are going to go Antonio Gibson with relative ease. Should be a high-scoring game. And at the same time, if you have no Brian Robinson, I mean, he should just dominate touches here and get involved as a receiver. Now, Levi says, Pollard or Cup rest of season. I'm going to go ahead. I will take Pollard, given the fact it's tougher to find production at running back. So it's Swift or Pollard. Thanks. I'm going to go Pollard, my friend. Mr. Billy Webb says London or JSN. I'm going to go London. Reek says Javante or Ty. I'm going to go Javante. To the Max says, Sub Mason, full BBR needed tied into the flex. Kincaid likely Taysom, Javante, Nico, Reed. Thanks, Mason. Appreciate the work. But no, thank you, my friend. I'm going to go Kincaid over likely and Taysom. And then for the flex, Nico Collins is not playing. So you will go Javante, my friend. Shregan Fiona says, pick 1 full BBR. Reed, Walker, Ford, or Goddard for the flex. I will go ahead and play Kenneth Walker, even though Walker is in a tough spot and Walker honestly projects out very low on Underdog this week. But Louis says full BBR 2 or Stafford. We're going to go Stafford, and this is relatively easily given how good the matchup is going up against Washington. And then Pollard, Mixon, HN, Montgomery, Jefferson, Olave, Smith, Ingram, Ferguson. I'm sorry, my friend, with kickers, I legitimately have no idea. I promise you anything that I would tell you with the kicker, you'd be better off just not listening to me at all. Here, we are going to be going with Pollard and Mixon at running back. We're going to go Jefferson and Smith at wide receiver. We'll play Montgomery in the flex, though, with Olave and HN banged up. I mean, if you have those other options that are comparable, there's no reason to roll the dice. But I think that should be it for this live stream. We will be live later today with more injury news as we get it. And we'll be live late tonight after the games to recap all the games and answer more questions. But thank you again so much for hanging out with us. I do want to remind you all a couple things. One, I'm going to stop uploading on this channel very soon. I know the majority of y'all only care about fantasy football during the season. That's completely fine. My favorite way to play fantasy football is Dynasty Fantasy Football. That's what I got started on YouTube with. So we are going to be back to uploading daily Dynasty videos on the Dynasty Football Flock YouTube channel. I'm not going to post them here just because I know most of y'all don't care, which is completely fine, completely understand. But if you are interested in that, you can just search Dynasty Football Flock on YouTube. Should be the first thing that pops up. And also, if you wanted to check out any of those Pickems over on Underdog, promo code Flock, get you a 100% deposit match, plus our rest of season fantasy football rankings and tiers. And on top of that, ladies and gentlemen, a Lamar Jackson special Pickem, more than less than half a total yard. And my favorite Pickem to take with that is going to be Keaton Mitchell for fewer than 9.5 rush attempts. Has never had 10 carries in a single game. But one last question. BB says, start 1-1. Hall, Zeke, Moss, Hopkins, Waddle, Devontae. I'm going to go with Moss and then Hall, my friends. For sure play Moss. I mean, you're either wanting to flip-flop back and forth between Hall and Zeke if you wanted to go in that direction. I just think that Hall's a more talented running back. But thank you again, ladies and gentlemen. I really do appreciate you. I wish you the best of luck for your games today. And I will be live and hopefully get to see you later tonight as well. But thank you so much for everything.